Before we dive in, just introduction of myself. My name is Mitch Foster. I'm our integrations and partnerships manager here at Hostfully. I personally have a couple properties myself. Have been in property management on the STR side, the vacation rental side, for about 5 years now. And I'm joined here by one of my awesome colleagues who's always traveling somewhere, Joseph Cox. Joe, where are you at today?
Hi, Mitch. Thanks for the introduction and great to connect with you all. Yeah, I'm currently in Slovenia. It's a beautiful country. I've never been before. Just by Lake Bled. I hope some of you have been there, but it's stunning. Would recommend it. So it's a calling from Slovenia. And yeah, I'm Joseph, Director of Business Development, if you don't know me. I've been in property for about 5-6 years now. I've done a mix of holiday rental management, marketing for hotels, and property, a bit of property and land development as well. So a bit of all sorts. And yeah, excited to get this going with James at the Holiday Cottage Hamburg.
Right on. Joe, you should drop where you're at in the questions tab. I'd love to see that link, man.
I will, for sure. Yeah.
Right on, right on. Well, without further ado, James, our guest of the hour, appreciate you, man, for hopping on. We were so stoked to be partnering up with you on some projects here. You got a ton of knowledge to share, an incredible background. So I'll just turn it over to you because I'm sure the people would rather hear you talk than me.
Thanks, Mitch, and thanks, Joe. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here today and connecting with you guys at Hostfully. We've got loads of exciting things that we're going to be working on, and we'll be discussing one of those today, which is our new podcast series, HCH Bitesize. I'll just give a little bit of an overview about myself, but also Holiday Cottage Handbook. So I spent my entire career really working in the media, started out in newspapers, radio, magazines, TV, before spending 10 years working in Qatar, working on the World Cup project, where I was managing corporate communications. While I was in Qatar, I started investing in property, originally buy-to-let, so long-term rentals in the UK. And then later on, I shifted to short-term rentals. I experienced staying in my first short-term rental in San Francisco when I couldn't find a hotel room for under $300 a night. And after that experience, and also because I needed a place to stay in the UK, I moved along to the STR world. And when I made that shift, I noticed there was a huge difference in the amount of information and education that was out there for hosts and property managers compared to the long-term rental space. So in the UK, there are some brilliant forums and podcasts and events all dedicated to long-term lets. But short-term rentals, I couldn't really find what I was looking for. It seemed like everything was congregating in Facebook groups where the knowledge being shared and the education was a little bit questionable from time to time. So I felt there was a real need in the industry for a communications platform, which is something I know a lot more about than short-term rentals, that would help hosts and property managers like me, and also a platform that would really stand up for the sector as well. We don't always get the best press, so we need to have that ecosystem where we can all work together and promote the very best of our industry. And also, I think education is just so important for STR hosts and property managers, because everybody's at a different stage of their journey. We've got people who are running a room in their house, they're letting a room in their house to people who are managing thousands and thousands of properties. So it's so important that people understand what's happening. It might be with regulation, it might be tips, it might be trends, it might be understanding the different products that are out there to help them become the best property managers that they can be. And that's what we're all about as a platform, being useful, helping people develop successful and sustainable businesses. And we do that through a lot of free content, educational content that's actionable on our website. And we do that through a number of channels. So we've got our website, we've got blog posts on there, we've got a ebook which you can download. You just got to put your email address in. We have various podcast series, and we're going to be adding to that very soon with HCH Bitesize, which is sponsored by Hostfully. And yeah, so we just exist to be useful to help people, develop their businesses, in the same way that I've kind of developed my small number of properties here in Yorkshire. And those previous screens that we had Mitch, that we showed about the dynamic pricing tools. So towards the start of our journey, and I think this kind of explains where a lot of people are in the STR world, we asked a question to our audience about dynamic pricing tools. Do you use one? If so, which one do you use? If not, why not? And the most common answer we got from the community, which was various different Facebook groups and on social media, most people didn't know that they existed. So I think that explains the level of knowledge. That illustrates kind of where we are as a really new industry, and why education is just so important for hosts and property managers to help them be the best they possibly can be.
Totally. And I try to join as many Facebook groups as I can. Sometimes it gets a little jumbled, and also you mix in just the operations of being a property manager on top of, like, doing other stuff like my own job. But, I think a lot of property managers could probably agree that it can get a little hard to carve out time to really focus on the continued education part and either growing the better operations or learning about new tools or regulations. What would you suggest, James, on any tips of the best way to kind of carve out times, or maybe get in the rhythm, or let's hear what the expert would have to say.
I mean, I would say if you drive, or if you go on walks, or if you use public transport, then to get your pods in and listen to podcasts. I mean, I think they're a fantastic way of, spending half an hour. Even if you're scrolling on your phone while listening, you might be reading something else. I'm sure there'll be something during that podcast episode where it will strike you. It will be something that is a light bulb moment, and you can action that according to your own business. And that's really the way that we try to do things at Holiday Cottage Handbook. So our weekly podcast, which comes out every Friday, we tend to interview CEOs, founders, high profile people in the industry to learn from them. And what I love about the knowledge that they share is that it's relatable and actionable, whether you've got one property or whether you've got thousands. And tends to be the case that most people have kind of come from the same area in this industry. And what I mean by that is that pretty much everybody started out with one or two properties. They found a problem and then tried to deliver a solution accordingly. I mean, we had Margot on from Hostfully on our podcast a few months ago, I think, and her story is very similar to a lot of other stories, and actually similar to my story. I've got a couple of properties. I'm not trying to deliver a tech solution because I'm the least techie person ever, but I'm trying to deliver a communications solution because that's what I know, and that's what I know and understand. And I think that's one of the great things about the industry, that it's such a young industry. Everybody's shaping it, and everybody is wanting to share the knowledge that they're gaining so that we can push this industry forward. And by listening to podcasts, that's one way that you can really increase your knowledge. And there are a lot of great platforms out there which are sharing a lot of free education. Hostfully is definitely one of them. There's a real commitment to helping people learn and increase their knowledge. And of course, that's what we're all about as well. So like I said before, head to our website, holidaycottagehandbook.com. You can download our free ebook, read our blog post, sign up for our newsletter, listen to our various podcast series. And it's just all about helping people. And when I get those messages from people or emails from people saying that I just got one actually about half an hour ago, because we launched a 6-part property management masterclass podcast series today, and he said, I run 10 rentals in Scotland, and I just want to thank you for producing this information, because it's shared stuff that I wasn't aware of, and now I can start utilizing that stuff in my own business. And when we get those comments, I know that we're making the impact that we want to make.
Definitely. I totally resonate with that. This industry just feels like everyone's so willing to share, and it's kind of just about finding the right source of that information and what works best for you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about the industry, really. I mean, even I think a lot of competitors, I've heard this from a lot of people, competitors, they talk, they share knowledge, and it's all about kind of driving the industry forward. I think everybody truthfully looks at one another as a colleague rather than a competitor, even if that's what they are. And yeah, it's definitely one of the great things about the industry. And yeah, like I said, it's a young industry. It's moving forward at such a rapid pace, and because you're involved in it now, you've got this opportunity to kind of shape it a little bit, and I think that's really exciting for all of us who are involved in it.
Definitely. Speaking of shaping and moving and shaking a little bit, because that's what regulation is. But I know you had some thoughts on this, so I'd love to hear a little bit what you have regarding regulations.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming. It's either here or it's on its way, as we say on the slide there. I mean, we're seeing more and more regulation. We're seeing more and more reports about potential restrictions in various cities and various countries around the world. And again, this is one of the reasons why it's so important to be up to date with what's going on in the industry, and working alongside people who are also hosts and managers, working with different associations and helping to stand up for the sector. We don't necessarily have this huge short-term rentals lobby in the way that the hotel industry might, for example. So I think it's important that we're all kind of broadly on the same page. We're supporting each other. We're kind of signing petitions. We're taking part in surveys. We're understanding the data out there so that we can share it with lawmakers and ensure that any regulation or licensing schemes or whatever it might be, that they're fair and proportional, and that they're going to respect the industry, but also respect the tourism and the local economies that benefit from our industry. And like I said at the start, one of the reasons that I launched Holiday Cottage Handbook is because I wanted to have a platform that would really promote and advocate for the industry, because, as I mentioned before, we don't always get the best press. There's a lot of articles about Airbnb party house next door, or noisy neighbors, or it might be people who are owning second homes are taking properties away from first time buyers. This kind of narrative, that we've got to work very hard to change that narrative and to switch things so that people understand the benefits that we bring to local economies, the employment that we bring, the tourism benefits, the way that local businesses benefit from the way that we operate. So I think we've got to work really hard to share that story, and that's why it's important that we're all kind of on the same page, and we're supporting different associations. I mean, here in the UK, we've got PASC UK, we've got the ASSC in Scotland, we've got the STAA, which also operates from London. So I think definitely support those associations, interact with them, become members if you can afford to do that, and be a part of the voice that we need to make sure that we promote the very best of this industry and keep it going as sustainably as possible.
Thanks for delving into that, James. Yeah, I have a quick question, and we're seeing, like, I've been in the short-term rental industry for quite a few years now, and it's gone, there's so much change. It's going very quick, and some for the better, some for the worst, and just intrigued by with these regulations. They're getting quite severe, going across from the US to Europe or to Australia. What would be sort of the best way for operators to get involved with these, fast changing situations? How would they go about? What would be the best way to go around doing this?
I think to engage with your local association is really important. And if in your country or region there isn't one, try to get together with like-minded businesses to set one up and launch one. I think it's important that we have some kind of united effort. I mean, here in England recently, the government is talking about changing the way that furnished holiday lets, as they're described by the government, are taxed. So PASC UK has been doing some sterling work, leading surveys, trying to gather data, lobbying members of parliament here, so the politicians. They had a meeting with Treasury officials this week alongside the ASSC. So by supporting your association, maybe that's buying a membership. The one for PASC, I think, is about £80 a year, so it's not very expensive. And through that, you would get access to their data, access to their support. You'd be able to email them and phone them for advice, and also you're supporting those vital lobbying efforts. So I think engage with your local associations. Let's try and create a united voice. engage with the various ecosystems that are out there, like Holiday Cottage Handbook, of course, and the various other ones. And let's, do our best to promote what's going on in the industry. That might be, speaking to your member of parliament or your local politicians nearby, showing them your business, inviting them along, explaining how it impacts on the local economy, and also, trying to promote yourself, whether you're promoting yourself on social media, whether you're promoting yourself to, local newspapers, doing things in the media, talking to journalists and outlining the situation, maybe putting the opposite viewpoint across, saying how that you're supporting employment, you're supporting local businesses, that kind of thing. Anything that we can do to, change the narrative, to make sure that we're seen in a bit more of a positive light, I think that's going to be helpful. And that probably starts with, interacting with your local association.
Totally makes sense. And I've gotten involved with my local association here in South Dakota. There's obviously not many regulations going on where I live, but compared to if we have some people joining from the UK or throughout Europe, huge importance there. So appreciate you sharing that, James. Now, I think we were going to talk a little bit about some trends and kind of what either, what's kind of the sweet spot between listening to, what content is being put out there for trends and using actual software and getting your own data and learning how to read that. So, James, I'll just turn it over to you. I'm sure you have a little bit more knowledge when it comes to this stuff than me.
Yeah, the data. I mean, I think it kind of depends on where you are in your business and what your goals are really in relation to utilizing the data. I mean, I think the good thing is about our industry is that there is a lot of information out there these days. There are a lot of companies which are dedicated to sharing data, sharing knowledge about different countries, sharing different trends about what are going on, whether it's in relation to occupancy or daily rates or pacing and all this kind of thing. I mean, Key Data, I think, does a fantastic job of like sharing quarterly reports for key markets and updating people of, where we are and what to expect in the future. And that's obviously like really useful, whatever the stage of your journey, whether you've got one property or whether you've got quite a few. I think if you're kind of, maybe you've got a 9-to-5 job and you have a rental and it's kind of a bit of a side hustle and maybe it's your pension pot eventually, you're probably not going to need that much data. You can get by on what's available freely at the moment. But if you're looking to scale quickly, if you're going into new markets, if this is your 9-to-5 and you want to have a big property management business, then I think data is really, really important. And it's something that you need to be getting hold of right at the start of your journey so that you can create the best possible plan and set you up for success.
Totally. And I'm glad you mentioned Key Data. Obviously, me and Joe are kind of into software. That's kind of what we do on a regular basis. So we like using tools, and Key Data is an awesome tool. Cool part about Hostfully is we'll be having a nice freemium tool where it's going to allow people to really kind of analyze their own properties and how they've been performing, and really just make some decisions based on how you performed this year, last year, in the future, and that kind of stuff. But yeah. Now, I know we also wanted to talk about amazing our guests, which, Joe, I think you're quite an expert on this. What are some of the things that you were talking about before the call here?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So guest experience, the most important thing, and providing those extra bits on top of the stay. Me and James had a podcast the other day, which was really fun. James absolutely loved it. Going through upsells and add-ons and providing extra, just going that bit further with guests. Some of the things we talked about were early check-in, late check-out, these relatively easy ones to make a few more pounds. Mid-stay clean, having some transportation provided, all sorts of things. And something with Hostfully, which is great, is we also not only provide the platform, we also provide guidebooks. So the guidebook sits uniquely URL. You can put an automated message, send it out, and it's got everything in there for the guests to enjoy their stay, whether it's, recommendations of local restaurants to go and eat at, activities to go and do, go and climb that mountain, go and visit that restaurant or something, just all sorts of things. You can upsell in there. You can provide links with Viator, so you make commission through TripAdvisor experiences and things. So loads of different things. And I guess, James, from your side of things, what sort of experiences do you think should be provided for an expert to get involved in? What would be sort of the best recommendations you would have?
In terms of delivering a great guest experience, I think the first thing I'd really look at is communication. I think if you can get your communication right, then you get so much closer to getting those great reviews. And of course, our industry revolves around getting these great reviews all the time. And part of that guest communication can be using a digital guidebook. And, the tool that Hostfully have is fantastic. And if you don't have a digital guidebook, this is one very quick, simple and cheap way that you can take your guest experience to the next level. And the great thing about your digital guidebook is that not only is it going to share all the information that you need to share with guests, it's an instant resource for them, but it can also help you to achieve the upselling opportunities as well, which Joe just mentioned there. So a digital guidebook is not only cheap, but you should be making money on that investment because it can help you to earn more revenue. But I think in like that guest communication journey is like working out exactly when you need to be communicating with your guests and making it personable and, focusing on hospitality, and don't be afraid of using like different channels as well. I think we're in this era now where everybody's kind of hiding behind a screen, aren't they? Everybody's hiding behind WhatsApp or Airbnb message or whatever the OTA that you're using. Don't be afraid of calling people. Don't be afraid of maybe sending them a WhatsApp message. Don't be afraid of meeting them face to face, because I feel like we're getting to the stage now where if you can be really personable, if you can meet your guests from time to time, that's going to make you stand out. I know it's not always possible. I know it's not always what the guest actually wants, but from time to time, if you can, put that, put a face on your business, you can deal with issues promptly yourself, then that is going to help you deliver that fantastic guest experience. And I think, a few things that I'd focus on is, that journey, getting the message to them when they book, when you send the check-in details, and how you send them, how you share them with a digital guidebook, ideally. What does your first night message look like? Are you sending a midnight message, a mid-stay message, rather? The night before they
hopefully
leave
not
message.
A midnight message, right?
I was just thinking, that might be a bit weird. But also, like, how are you utilizing your communication to A, get that great review, and then B, if that guest has come from an OTA, how are you turning them into a direct booker next time? So I think having that clear guest communication journey, being flexible, being personable, and occasionally utilizing the face-to-face as well can, I think, really help you take things to the next level, and always like adhering, always being professional, always being on brand. Those are the things that are going to help you stand out, whether you've just got one property or whether you're a big property management business. I think, my number one thing would be, if you can get your communication spot on, then you're going to be a great host.
Excellent advice, James. Absolutely excellent. And just to add what he's saying too, building your brand, especially, we've talked about Hostfully's digital guidebooks. Of course, there's more out there. There's other ways you can do it. We're a little biased, of course. One thing that's really cool about Hostfully's digital guidebooks, James mentioned the book again. We have a lot of customization where you can really build that into your flow. And also, along with the communication side of having that experience, you can build almost any recommendations out there with your house manual, how to use things throughout the house. And that can actually be tied right into your Hostfully management platform. Remember, they're two different platforms, but they can work together. And I think Joe mentioned it in the comments, but we just released our Inbox AI, and that is trained on your guidebook. So that guest communication, that experience, we're trying to level that up as well. So hopefully you join that ride with us. But moving on from the guest experience, just discovering the latest tech solutions, a lot of softwares out there, of course. Just curious if they can't see. Well, looks like my internet kind of went out. I had some prepared questions here, James, but I'm gonna just turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the software side, operations, and what you recommend.
Yeah, I think, we're going to talk about kind of how you choose a software solution, because there are so many out there and they're all kind of offering the same thing and they're all saying that they're great. I mean, I think one thing I'm going to talk about here is when I set up Holiday Cottage Handbook and we wanted to develop our newsletter. So I tried a lot of different newsletter solutions. And because, like I said before, I'm the least techie person ever, I wanted something that was really simple to use, excellent user experience, but also like a couple of things that I really value. I really value excellent branding, clean branding. If it looks the part at the front, then as a non-techie person, I trust that the back end is going to be good as well, and it's going to deliver a good solution. And another thing that I really value is a commitment to education, because anything that is software related, IT related, is a continual journey. You don't just create something and away people go with it. It always has to be improved. There always have to be changes, and you have to make sure that your audience is kind of along with you for the journey, and that you can share how they can continually get better. And it might just not just be related to their particular software, but how they can get better generally in the industry. And I think that's, one of the things that I love about Hostfully, really. Fantastic products, brilliant branding, but also there's this real commitment to education and, this commitment to helping people understand what's going on in the industry everywhere. So like going back to my newsletter experience, so I tried just about every single one out there. I ended up going with MailerLite because it's just the most simple to use, really effective, great branding, and a real focus on continually educating the end user. Wasn't necessarily the cheapest, but it was by far the best. And those, because of those things that I really value, I don't mind spending a few extra dollars a month on a solution like that. In terms of other software in the short-term rentals industry, the great thing about them is that you can try them. So like me with the various newsletter tools, get out there, try them, work out what's going to be best for you based on your initial values, but also your business, and then go accordingly. But I think if you like me, you focus on a great user experience, you focus on something that's simple to use with good branding, a commitment to education, then I don't think you can go too far wrong.
Absolutely. That totally makes sense. And I totally agree with the continued education. Hostfully is obviously very committed to that. I'm sure a lot of you got invites from being on past Hostfully webinars. So, oh, sorry, spotty Wi-Fi again. I hope you guys can still hear me.
I can hear you fine. You haven't chopped out at all.
Okay. Perfect. Now, I know some people have asked in the chat here about some of the communities. We did have a question from Suzanne. She caught that you had talked about charging extra for early check-in or late checkout. I know that varies widely across the board. Just curious, what do you do for that, James? What do you charge?
Do you know what? If the property's ready and they maybe want to check in an hour or two early, then I tend to say go ahead with no charge. Because is it worth trying to get the 5-star review? Because I think that would probably guarantee a 5-star review if you do that for free. Or is it really worth getting the extra, $10 or $20, whatever it might be? There will be some situations where, if somebody wants to check in 3 hours early, then, I might say, okay, it's an extra X percentage of the daily rate. But if I can give somebody an early check-in and it's not affecting me and it's not affecting the housekeeping team, then I will tend to do it for nothing, because I think reviews are probably the most important thing in this industry, and I'm always aiming for that top review. So yeah, if I can do it, I will.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd probably say go for the reviews over the extra $20 for an early check-in. But everyone's operation is a little bit different. So tell us a little bit more about the community, though, James. How can people find you? How can they join? What can they expect to learn?
Yeah, so first thing you can do, head to our website, which is holidaycottagehandbook.com. I think there's a lovely link to it, which Mitch has pushed there, and there you'll find everything that you need, really. So you can sign up for our newsletter. We've got a podcast series which comes out once a week. We've just released a new podcast series today about property management masterclass. That's a 6-part series, so you can binge through it like your favorite Netflix show. All the episodes have been released in one day, and very soon in September we will be releasing HCH Bitesize, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about. So this is going to be 15-minute episodes, and this show is going to be sponsored by Hostfully, and every episode we're going to be tackling a different STR related subject and topic. So we'll have episodes about upselling, like the one with Joe. We'll have episodes about dynamic pricing, digital guidebooks, sustainability, etc., etc. So there'll be one a week from September, and we've already recorded a bunch of them, and really looking forward to getting that series live. And then, the other things, like I mentioned, on our website. So we've got blog posts, we've got the free ebook, which people can download, and we've got a new one coming out in September. And we are organizing a series of events as well. So they're in the UK. So if you're in the UK, but maybe in the future we'll start hosting events further afield as well. But we've got one coming up on the 4th and 5th of October, which is STR Zone, powered by Holiday Cottage Handbook. So that's in association with the Property Investor Show. It's a free event to attend at the Excel in London. And then we're doing another free event with Your Air Host, which is a property management company in London. That's on Friday, the 8th of November. Places are very limited for that one, but if you want to come along, head to holidaycottagehandbook.com/Your Air Host. You'll find the information about that, and you'll be able to pop your name in, and it's first come, first served. So if you register now, because we announced it today, you'll have a good chance of coming along.
Perfect. Excuse me, I was trying to pop up all those beautiful links, and there's almost so much information, you guys. So we will be sharing a recording of this, by the way, afterwards. I'll share all the links that were shared during this presentation too, so that you guys have those. So no worries if you miss any of those. Do we have any questions in the chat, Joe?
I think we answered them all. Apart from Joseph, I'll get back to you now, Joseph. But yeah, do ask away with questions, everybody. And as we say, we'll send you the recording after this.
Awesome. Well, that sounds.
Mitch, do you know the answer to it?
For the recording, I am not sure. It should be available forever, Joseph. Joseph Lee, not Joseph. My Joseph. There shouldn't be an expiration on that, so don't worry. You'll be able to watch it anytime. All right. If you guys do have any last minute questions for James or for us, be sure to throw those in the comments. While we wait for some of those, just a couple things. Again, we had mentioned Hostfully's guidebooks. We're not on here to sell a bunch, but we're on here to educate. And since we're talking about guest experience, like I said, I'm a host myself. I was using Hostfully guidebooks before I was even a part of Hostfully, and there's a reason for that. It's truly great for the guest experience. There's so many different features, so many different touch points you can do for the guests. And hopefully at the end of the day, I mean, as much as we like communicating, it's probably good if our guest doesn't communicate with us, because usually that means there's no issues. And hopefully we're not messaging them at midnight, right, James? But
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
Unless, yeah.
If you guys aren't using digital guidebooks, I'm gonna post here this. We do have a live demo tomorrow, put on by a couple members of our team. Obviously, they're going to be geared towards Hostfully's guidebooks, but even if you're not using those, feel free to join. Maybe you'll get inspired on some things that you can do to add for your guest experience. So, looks like we did have a couple more questions come in. Joseph Lee asked about the best housekeeping app. There's quite a few. I don't know if you want to touch on that at all, James, or if you have any opinions on that, but
the one that I can think of is Turno. I don't know if you've tried Turno, Joseph, but yeah, take a look at that. And I see Joe's put a load on there. Breezeway, Turno. Yeah, take a look at those two, definitely.
Yep, great answer, other Joseph. No, totally agree. And all right. So it looks like Joe's questions are really geared towards the turnover side. Joe, we'd be happy to just meet with you if you want to do a separate call, so we can actually talk to you face to face and kind of understand a little more what you're looking for. We can reach out to you after this. Oh yes, Helen. Great question, Helen. Helen just popped in. Remember, we had some poll questions at the beginning. One of them, how do you work with local businesses? And curious, James, how people can get involved with working with those local businesses. And then I think also, along with that, James, we're going to have to know the answer to your greatest skill outside of educating STR hosts.
I'll save the skill answer just to keep you all on tenterhooks. But the in terms of working with local businesses, I think it's really, really important to be a great ambassador for your local area generally. I mean, if your area is known for anything special, I don't know, honey, wine, cheese, beer, whatever it might be, if you can share a little bit of that maybe in your welcome pack or as a free gift when people arrive, I think that's amazing. And being a great ambassador for your area, showcasing local businesses, giving recommendations. It might be the pub, it might be a farm shop, it might be a restaurant, cafe, whatever it might be. Guests love recommendations. Generally they're not going to know the area that well. And if you can link up with businesses and say, and this is one thing that I've done, there's a local Indian restaurant near me, which is very popular. And I contacted them over email. I just said, look, I've got a couple of properties nearby. I mention your restaurant all the time. Will you give my guests a discount? And they were happy to. They said, look, if your guests just show proof that they're staying with you, we'll give them a 10% discount every time they come. So it's great for the restaurant because it's encouraging more people through the door. It's great for the guests. They're getting a little discount. I'm not getting any major kickback on it, but it's just another way of adding to the guest experience. And of course, but with those deals, sometimes they can be upselling opportunities. If you put people to the through the doors of different businesses, you might be getting referral fees, you might be able to get a percentage of any profits or whatever it might be. So being a great ambassador for your local area I think is really, really important. And that also extends to maybe even the street that you live on. It doesn't mean always recommending businesses and upselling, like being a great neighbor as well. I think that's so important. Are you making sure that your property is an asset to the street where it is? Do you know the neighbours? Are you interacting with them? Do they have your contact details? Are you turning them into advocates of your rental rather than opponents of your rental? I think that's so important. It's all part of being a great host and a great property manager, but also being an integral part of the local community. I see there's another question there about how do you get a kickback? You could try using like different upselling tools. There are various like upselling platforms. Like there's one called the Host Co, for example, and they will help you work with local businesses. They'll include details of it in your guidebook, and you can kind of automate the process. So any of your guests who go through to that company, and like make a booking. Say, for example, it's a private chef. In fact, I've got a chat next week with a company in London who their business is all about people who can book private chefs, and they've noticed a big uptick in people who are running short-term rentals, getting involved with them so that they can, put business their way. So, for example, in the digital guidebook, I can share information about, hey, if you guys want, you can book a private chef, use this platform, and anybody who goes to that platform with the link that I provide, and they make a booking, and it's £1,000, you might get a 5%, 10% kickback. So there are ways to automate that process. You can do that through your digital guidebook, and there are various kind of upselling platforms now. One of them is the Hostco. There's various others. I think Local Bird is another one off the top of my head. And you can work with those companies to simply offer all these different upselling services. No real work on your part, but you can get a kickback if anybody goes through and makes those bookings.
Very nice. Yeah, Peter had another follow-up question. Does Hostfully have anything within their guidebooks? Joe mentioned Viator earlier. Our guidebooks are super customizable, so you can do a ton of different upselling as well. And you can actually, depending on what platform you'd try to link with, like the Hostco or Local Bird or something of that nature, we can use a lot of dynamic links. So you can really set a lot of things up to get kickback through activities or bookings or anything of that nature. So that kind of answers Peter's question. And I think that kind of answers Karen's too, of different ways that you can kind of do upselling. Again, guys, we do have another webinar tomorrow that's geared towards digital guidebooks. So if you haven't joined already, be sure to join that, and we can kind of show you the different options you can do with upselling.
Yeah, I think what Karen was saying there, the revenue streams that you can expect, I think it depends on your property in your local area. I was interviewing Annie, who runs the Hostco, and she said that there was one guy who made most of his upselling money from wood chipping, because he has a fireplace there, and people buy the wood chips, and he's buying these for like $3 and selling them for like $20 or $30. So, and that's just pure profit. He doesn't have to give any of that percentage to an OTA or anybody else. So yeah, depending on where you are, your location, and what your target guests are going to want, those are the upselling things that you can provide. And you don't have to kind of list that many. Most people, when they go to a short-term rental, they're probably not going to be given a list of extra things that they can buy. So just by offering it, your guests are going to be like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. He's offering me like 5-6 different things that I can buy. And it might be, I don't know, bottle of champagne on arrival. It might be a special, like you say, book a private chef, whatever it might be, or rent bicycles, rent golf clubs. Depending on where you are, you should, tailor your upsells accordingly. And, like the wood chip example, sometimes it's the really cheap stuff that's simple to provide, that delivers the most profit.
Exactly. One that I just saw recently, I was on a bachelor party. So a lot of dudes, the setup was for obviously a bachelor party, and they upsold us on some hangover kits, basically, with like liquid IVs and ibuprofen and some things like that, which we probably could have bought on our own, but it's still really convenient just to have it right there.
Ibuprofen upsell, I love it.
Mm-hmm. Got me with that one. All right. Well, guys, I know we're kind of coming up to time here. So if you do have any questions, like I said, we'll be sending you guys an email after this. So feel free to respond there. If you haven't, join James's podcast, join his newsletter. Such awesome information that's being pumped out of there all the time. So we really do appreciate you joining here. Again, James, thank you so much for joining us on this session. And we're looking forward to doing a bunch of these in the future.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Joseph. And yeah, we've got HCH Bitesize coming out soon in September. If you want to be the first to hear about that, make sure you register via our website. There's the HCH Bitesize page, which I think, Mitch, you've got a link for. So yeah, check that out and make sure you listen to those podcast episodes because they are going to be really, really useful for house and property managers everywhere.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we will leave you with that. Again, you'll get a recording. Appreciate you again for joining, and we will see you next time.